Hello everyone, welcome to this panel today. My name is Colin Foreman, I'm the Deputy Editor at MEED, and today we're talking in this session about smart construction, laying the foundations for a decarbonised future. I think this is a great time to be talking about this at the moment. We're in a world where cash is tight. We're talking a lot more about efficiencies and how we can build better and make the most of the capital investment we're putting in. And then in this region, a lot of what's happened over the last 10, 15, 20 years has been a lot of building. A lot of buildings are now approaching the stage of life where they maybe need some enhancements of retrofitting and make them so they can perform better operationally. And that ties in with this whole idea of decarbonising construction and having better environmental performance, which ties into a lot of the big policy government goals around the world at the moment. So it's a lot of interest seems to be converging at the moment. So I think it's a really interesting time to be talking about this subject. And today it's great that we've got 4 experts here to guide us through and really help us understand what to look out for in the future and what the principles are, and really unpick what's happening with this market sector at the moment. So the first person I'd like to introduced is Amma Arafat, who is the technical manager for the Dubai Carbon Centre of Excellency. So if Amma, you could just give a brief introduction about yourself and your experiences with decarbonisation. Amma, I think you might be on mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I missed the last 1 minute.
Just a quick introduction about yourself and what you do. And
right. Yeah. What as technical as? I'm sorry. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. If you want to carry on speaking, I think we can hear you.
All right. So my name is Amr Arafat. I work as technical manager at Dubai Carbon. Dubai Carbon is going to turn 10 years next month. Basically, Dubai Carbon was established 10 years ago through an agreement that was signed between the Supreme Council of Energy in Dubai and the UNDP, United Nations Development Programme. The idea at that time was to fill a market gap when it comes to the low carbon economy. So basically, the idea was to help public and private entities to shift towards low carbon economy. So we started by registering projects under the CDM, Clean Development Mechanism. We have an advisory and consultancy department that focuses on writing sustainability strategies, green economy frameworks. We also have a solar installation department. We offer solar consultancy services. We do carbon printing calculations. We also have GHG inventories for various cities in the Middle East and countries as well. And we also have a department that focuses on what we call the knowledge products. So we have an annual report that is called the Green Economy Report, and monthly magazine.
Okay. Thank you, Amma. Your sound dropped out a little bit at the end there, but I think just to move on, we'll move over to our next panelist, which is Engineer Sarah Ibrahim El Hag. If you'd like to introduce yourself and what you do, Sarah.
Thank you, Colin. Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah El Hag. I'm a senior sustainable energy expert working in the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. I'm heading currently the unit of sustainable energy projects implementation and private investment promotion. So basically in RECRE, we're based in Cairo with 17 member states within the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa. And RECRE, for people who just don't have met or come across the organization, is an intergovernmental organization. We're based in Cairo. We are the technical arm for the League of Arab States. Basically, the main goal of RECRE is to disseminate the culture and the implementation of renewable energies and energy efficiency across the region. And we're a leader into policy dialogue, into strategies and technical capacity within the region. We have member states. In each member state, we have scattered experts. We have a pool of experts. We have also like a pool of antennas around the region.
Thank you, Sarah. And our next panelist is Stéphane Legentil. You'd like to give a quick background on yourself, Stéphane?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Stéphane Legentil. I've been in the UAE for 7 years now. And my area of focus is energy efficiency and energy retrofit, so helping buildings to save electricity and water. I'm currently heading ADES, Abu Dhabi Energy Services Company, which is a newly formed organization. We will be soon 1 year old. We've been formed by TACA at the beginning of the year. And our objective is to retrofit the buildings in Abu Dhabi, Emirates, to save electricity and water in the government, semi-government, and private sector.
Thank you, Stéphane. And a final panelist is Mohammed Al Husseini from Honeywell. If you'd like to give a quick background on yourself.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mohammed Al Husseini. I'm handling in Honeywell International the energy solution. So I'm in Dubai, and we are managing from here a region covering Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. So as Honeywell, one of the international companies working in the domain of the building solution, from HVAC control, lighting control, and for many different systems within the building. So we found, like, across the last 5 to 6 years, raising demand on the energy saving solutions in the buildings. And that's we realized that it is time for us to dedicate a team within the company to look at the EPC projects, so energy performance contracting, where we can put the expertise of the controls people to help the end users to save energy. And that will help overall the building to be more sustainable and able to reduce the CO2 emission in the region. So this is becoming a very high trend, especially on the last couple of years across the Middle East, but especially within Emirates and Saudi. We see very high pickup on this solution. And we see that this is going to expand in the future more into the other countries in the Middle East and Africa region.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'd just like to remind viewers that there is a Q&A function on the system. So if you have any questions and things that crop up during the conversation, please fire your questions, and we'll try to field them the best we can. I think that the place to start really is when we talk about construction in the region. I think there's a lot of people captured, the sort of imaginations captured by very large projects, very expansive programs of work. It's quite easy to sort of maybe think that the environment and carbon performance is really at the top of the agenda. Sarah, if I could ask you, as someone who's got a sort of a regional view on things, are the government's priorities, have they changed over the recent years? Are they more concerned about environmental performance than they have been in the past, when there was more of a drive just to build without thinking about energy efficiency?
Thank you, Collins. I do believe the answer would be yes. I believe that within the region, at least, talking about the MENA region, the government are becoming more aware of all the implication of climate change because it's been hitting actually really close to home. We have the government now understanding that some parts of the region might face severe implication based on whatever we have been burning and sending to the planet. So since 2015 and after the intergovernmental panel in Paris, most of the countries in the region have agreed and signed to agree to the SDGs. So we have seen a big shift now. Countries are moving into sustainable development, and what might be actually obstacling or hindering some countries in the region might be finances and the know-how, but the political will and the desire, I believe, is there.
And it's a little bit of a different dynamic than you have in, say, markets such as Europe and some of the Far Eastern markets, where you've got a population growth that's not really quite so strong. Whereas in this region, the populations are growing; they need a lot more physical assets just because there's more people coming. How do you sort of marry those two competing forces?
Yes, actually, I don't see them really competing, because the way we work in RECRE is that we work with the policy makers. So we try to find a way to leverage or maybe to just make things come a little bit more clearer. So although the region, we have this very huge increase in population, and also not only population, there is this urbanization. So the economy is also growing and the need to energy is growing. But nevertheless, countries and statistics have shown, and countries are becoming much aware, that you don't have to compete. If you need to satisfy and to cater to all these energy needs of the increasing population, you need to have sources for energy. And the way, especially in the region, especially that the MENA region, most of the countries are falling within the solar belt zone, that is to go to renewables. So there is this shift that they're understanding now. You don't need to actually harm the environment and harm the universe while doing this. You can go to more greenery where there are more sustainable options. And I think it's just, as I say, the finances, the know-how, and, we need to have the expertise to do this. And I do believe that things are moving into the right direction.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned finance. We were speaking before this panel, and Stefan, we were speaking about the work you're doing, and finance is really the key to your business, really, isn't it? There seems to be quite a bit of investment now looking at environmental performance, and that's really allowing you to do the business you do.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's a very important point. Many of the building owners don't necessarily have budgets to improve significantly their buildings. So that's where we come in play, because we have a specific budget for this, so we can help the owners of buildings to really invest into their buildings to improve, and so that they can save electricity and water. One important aspect is that, when a building has been built, there was an amount of carbon that has been generated for making and building that building. So it's important that we keep it alive as long as possible, and not destroy and rebuild again, because that would emit a lot more carbon. So, and that's what we are doing as ADES, is also through the investment that we can make in the buildings, that we recover through the savings that are generated over time. Then we can improve and extend the life of the existing constructions.
And is a financier keen to get involved with these type of projects? Just on the sort of the big picture level, we've seen sort of the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund saying that they're not so keen on investing in fossil fuels anymore. But are people keen on investing in green projects like this now? Stefan, did you? Hello, Stefan. For some reason that. Perhaps Sarah, would you be able to help with that?
Collins, can you say again? I think I missed a little bit.
Yeah.
The link is just...
We've seen on the finance side that there's been, sovereign wealth funds, such as the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, has said it's going to retreat from investing in sort of fossil fuels and carbon companies that produce carbon. Are you seeing that finance is becoming more readily available for green projects? I mean, you're sitting in Egypt. Egypt issued its first green bond fairly recently, which is obviously looking at sustainable projects. Is that something that you're expecting to see more finance coming available in the future?
The issue with finance, in my opinion, that is not the availability of finance, it's the access to finance. So I do believe that there are a lot of funds, a lot of financiers ready to fund. It's actually having the right knowledge and know-how. For example, in the region, still the banks are not commonly working with green funding. They don't know how to assess the eligibility of projects to green funding. So it's the know-how, and I think there's should be more of capacity building to personnel in the banking system to access finance. Also, the guarantees for some countries might be difficult. The terms to get to access to funds. So the availability, and maybe Stefan is back now and can help us more with this. I think the availability there, it's just how to access it.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, yes.
Okay, so I don't know, something wrong happened. Yeah, I think you were saying, I think there is a lot of interest into financing these kind of projects, especially because they are for the people investing, they are quite secure. I mean, the risk that they are taking are very limited because companies like ADES, we are here to minimize the risks for everybody. Our clients are usually government clients, so they have a good track record in terms of payment and debt, etc. Plus, the projects we are doing are secured through the contractual mechanism we use with our subcontractors. So for the people investing, it's a pretty good type of project. Also, it's a long-term project. So the good thing is that they can invest and get the returns for a number of years. We're talking here between 5 to 10 years. So it's a stable return for those years. So people like it very much.
Thank you, Stefan. Sarah mentioned there it's the access to funding. Amar, is that something you mentioned that you have an advisory arm to your operations? Is that something that you're helping people out with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the advisory here, what we do mainly, as I said, is we offer services.
Sorry, Amar, I think we've lost your sound there. So no, I think you've dropped out. So we just shift.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Try again.
All right. So I was saying that these carbon credits, since they are bankable and tradable, they can create a new source of revenue for the project owners, which will help them finance new projects if they're willing to. The idea is quite simple: is that they just have to register these projects under one of the mechanisms that allow the generation of carbon credits, and with an eligibility criteria.
Okay. Thank you, Amma. In terms of the type of projects that people can get engaged in, Mohammed, you do a lot of work with the buildings at the moment. What sort of things are building owners typically doing to their buildings, and what kind of solutions are you being asked to provide?
Yeah, actually, we see nowadays this is an intention across different verticals in the building. So building owners, be it from government sector, be it from private sector, with a different type of building, be it an residential, offices, malls, commercial, etc. All are becoming very much interested in this. And if you look at it, it is really technology is helping the solution providers and the end users to go to the next step. So on average, when we look at and we do a study and we find that we're able to save sometime between 25 to 40 and 45% according to the building age, we can achieve such kind of saving, then the building owners will be very much interested. And this is actually interesting more nowadays because of, as we all know, with the situation we are in after the COVID started towards the end of Q1 this year. So a lot of investors, they have diverted their investment from building new buildings, going to the CapEx, and they were diverting it into saving what they have in OpEx. So this is becoming more and more interesting for a lot of owners to save the amount of energy we are spending, and that net of saving will become as a direct profit, which can cover a little bit of the profit from the original green building investment. So this is a really picking up trend. And I would like to also add here important technology aspect to it because of the smart IoT and the smart building. The artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions are all become important part of the energy saving measures. So additional to the conventional change of the equipment to the latest model, which by itself will save a lot, you are able to get at the end kind of a smart building by applying the artificial intelligence and machine learning. And that will increase your efficiency, not only in the energy saving, also in the operation and facility management team and maintenance team. So we see this is becoming a kind of package which are of interest for the end users from different verticals, becoming more and more demanding on that.
Okay, and we've had a question for you, Mohammed, which is asking about the plan for energy saving and automation within Honeywell applied on multi-properties and city-scale centralized solutions.
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting question because a lot of developers and end users, they have a multiple building across the city or across the region, and they find that this is going to benefit them not in a single entity. So they can benefit as a centralized location to connect to the remote buildings and different buildings in different cities. So this is becoming a kind of a centralized command control center where they can log into and see the energy saving happening there. Even they can reduce the amount of maintenance efforts going into the individual buildings, which they can do it centralized way. So in this way, it will be really adding a big advantage to the owners with the multiple sites. And Honeywell technology, we have such kind of a cloud-based solution where it will link all these buildings to the cloud and then connect it to the central location. And that is loaded with a lot of analytics, algorithm, and give a kind of as an owner or to the manager, facility manager to implement. And by these ideas, it can come automatically because the cloud will enable the comparing between different buildings for the same application and give good ideas. So, for example, an office building after the working hours, it can detect the building by itself by the automation to turn off the lights and change the set point to energy saving. It all can be done in an automated way without a man interfacing to it.
Thank you, Mohammed. We've had one follow-up from the same person who's saying if we take the sort of government-related the people that are sort of mandated to do these things out of the equation, are the commercial savings significant enough to warrant doing this, given that the energy costs in the UAE and certainly other markets in the GCC are quite low compared to other international places?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, we can see nowadays that private sector is picking up very high because, as the GCC countries, Usually it's very hot in the summertime, so it reaches sometimes to the 50 plus even. So the cooling system is really consuming a lot of energy, especially with the chiller plants and the air handling units, which are centralized AC units. So the private sector, when they go with this kind of energy saving, impacting the chiller especially into 30–40%, this will go into a result of a net maybe 16% into the energy bill, which is sizable when you consider a big sites with a big consumptions. So the private sector is also benefiting from that.
Stefan, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that, as you're someone who's doing the same sort of business.
Yeah, I think, well, to your point about the private sector, I think we're coming to a point in the UAE where you have a number of buildings where the owners will have to ask themselves, you know, their equipment will reach a certain end of life, and they need to replace them. For example, they have a big chiller on the roof, they need to replace the chiller. So then the question to ask themselves is like, should I just invest, replace, or should I find a company that will improve what I have, reduce the consumption, and then maybe replace it by a smaller chiller. So this kind of things start to be more and more known in the market. So we see a lot happening in the private sector. For me, ADES is focusing on the Abu Dhabi, mostly Abu Dhabi government sector currently. And there is a lot to do because also a lot of the government buildings are pretty old. So we see a lot of activity ongoing where they have to take decisions, you know, about what to do with their buildings, what to do. Should they invest more in the buildings? Should we change buildings also? And that's where we come at the right time because that's when those questions are being asked that we can help get to solutions that people were not thinking necessarily initially.
And is the government, sorry if I could ask you on it, is the government in these situations really creating a market that the private sector can then follow into and utilize itself?
Actually, yes, sorry. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry. So yes, my model as ADES, we don't execute the work ourselves, so we outsource everything to the private sector. So our objective is really more to be like a market maker, making sure that the market starts and develops, and the private companies really, develop their activities here. My objective is not to do the work myself. I want to do as many projects as possible, and then outsource as much as possible the work. So that should help, companies to get business out of the market.
Thank you, Stefan. Sarah, you were coming in on that question as well.
Yeah. Actually, I would say that the governments could further support catalyzing the market towards sustainable building via reducing the subsidies to the energy sector, because actually this would have created a drive to even the local people, to the companies, and it would give support to the private sector working into this sector. So I think this is one very important issue that we need to focus on, that policies and regulatory framework should be supportive in order to give a motive to the people to move into that direction.
And certainly in the UAE, I've seen that over the last 4 years. Is that something that you're seeing happening across all markets? I'm guessing budgetary constraints over the last year, 2 years makes it even more attractive for governments to move in that direction.
Yes, but on the other side, you see that the economic situation in different countries make it difficult for them to go to this bold move, especially with the political situation in a number of countries. They don't want to create any unnecessary disruption or conflict.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Then Amar, you've come back on with your sound, hopefully. I'm quite interested in this carbon credits idea that you were discussing, and I'd be interested to know how much that's been taken up in the region, what should anyone who's watching who has a portfolio of buildings, what can they do? How can that generate these revenues that you were talking about?
Yeah, so
I think we've lost you again, Amma. I'm really sorry about that. I think we'll have to move on. Amma, apology.
I don't know what's happening.
Apology. Yeah, the sound's not coming through. If we can move then to...
Hello?
Hello, yeah. Try one more time, Amma.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying that energy efficiency projects, about energy efficiency, are quite eligible to be registered under the clean development mechanism to create and generate carbon credit. Because the idea is that you reduce your current emission. And as a result of that, you can actually sell these carbon credits when you don't need them and give them to someone who's in need against a certain amount of money per ton or per carbon credit. Maybe one other way to do that is to look at also another mechanism called the Irex, International Renewable Energy Certificates. This comes from the installation of renewable energy projects. And since we are talking about retrofitting, so solar retrofitting can be a very good candidate for Irex.
Okay, I think we've
sold against certain amount of money, and this will also help create another source of revenue for the project owners, which they can use also to build new, other new renewable energy projects, or even the buyers of those certificates can also benefit from that by meeting certain sustainability commitments that they have, because these certificates also help them offset their emissions, as they carry with them the environmental attributes that come with those certificates.
Okay. Thank you, Amma. I hope people caught that. The sound for me was breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure if it was just my end. Stefan, you mentioned working with the private sector for delivering your project. I've typically reported on traditional construction projects, which have the usual project team of architects, engineers, contractors, and then subcontractors and suppliers such as Mohammed and Honeywell. How are your projects structured? Who gets involved with them? What sort of people are you working with?
Yeah, we work with particular companies that are called energy services companies, ESCOs. These were not really existing when I came to the UAE 7 years ago. They were not really existing here, but the market has developed in Dubai, in Ras Al Khaimah, and now in Abu Dhabi. And a lot of companies, I think there are around probably 40 of those companies active in the UAE. And those companies are really specialized into, it's companies that provide a turnkey solution to retrofitting buildings. So they're able to make the initial audits in the buildings, look at what are the the potential of savings that can be made. They can design the solution to be implemented. They can implement the solution using a number of subcontractors. So usually they work with a number of other companies that provide specific solutions. And then they can guarantee the result for a number of years. And that's really the difference with any other, I would say, construction-like company, is that the ESCOs usually take a risk in terms of guaranteeing the outcome of their project. And that's where, for us, it's very important, because it helps us to secure the financing and secure the way the projects are being structured. And that's why also for us, the risks are minimum, because it's the ESCOs that are taking the technical risk on the project.
And just to go back to what we were saying about creating a market, I'm guessing these companies are going out to building owners and proactively saying we can help you achieve X, Y, and Z when they're doing their business development.
Yeah, sure. I think the market started first in Dubai with the government sector, and the companies have been going out to the private sector. There are, for example, a lot of hotels in Dubai that have been going through a retrofit, so to save electricity and water. These are typical buildings where really when the owner is under pressure, like recently with the occupancy rates, etc., they don't necessarily have the budget to spend on help retrofitting their buildings, but they can go to those companies that will be really looking at how to improve and maybe use a scheme where they would share a part of the savings to finance the project with the ESCO. So it can be also an attractive model for the private sector, because they don't have to put the capex up front. It's the company that can bring it for them.
And Mohammed, have you got any insight into the sort of the public sector, private sector mix on the projects you've been involved in?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, working with companies like Addis and other in different regions, they're called the Super ESCO. So they are acting on behalf of the government to spread the knowledge and the awareness. And that will be having a mix of mainly the government, but there is some also private sector. But now if we look at Dubai, which could be one of the advanced stage market, we see now it's a good balance between the private and the government sector, because it started maybe 5 years ago with the government, and now the private is coming up on the same kind of, let's say, level. So we can see a good mix. Now, in the new market, it starts always with the government, where the government is really pushing to get the maximum on the saving, and that will help them to also improve the power substations availability for everyone. So it will have a kind of an advantage on both sides, saving in the building itself and saving on the infrastructure when the government decide to make a power distribution. So instead if they build 10 substations in a year, for example, they have to build only 8 or 7 because overall energy consumption is being reduced. So this is a good situation, looking at it from private into government into the infrastructure overall for the communities.
And how much is technology improving in this field as the market gains a bit of momentum? Is technology providing new solutions? What's the pace of change with technology?
Yeah, Colin, this is, I can tell you, a lot of focus on big companies like Honeywell going towards investing a lot on the software development to help the energy saving. So I'll give you an example. Nowadays, we have something as a solution called the digital twin of the building. And what does it do? It's mainly take the design of the building where it is intended to be built during the construction and put all the data and input of the equipment with the kind of a design power consumption. And then we monitor the real data coming from the meter basically in operating and compare the building operation versus the design of the building. And then we can see what is the delta. So in case there is a real difference, which is, and the consumption is higher than the design, then we can trigger automatically a kind of messages and alarms to go and check what's happening. Could be a leakage in the water, or the electricity, it is not consumed well, or there is some fault equipment which need to be fixed so they can go back again to the normal situation. So all of this software is working by itself in a kind of smart way. And again, all these buildings to the internet is making life easier to monitor and compare, and we can get the right suggestions.
And as you get more data, can you then use that data to advise on new builds? So, for example, if you have a building, you understand where buildings have shortcomings. Can you then use that data to design better buildings for the future?
Yeah, definitely. Nowadays, we see there's a rising inquiries on net zero buildings. And what does that mean? It's mainly new buildings coming up, and the target is to have a net zero on the consumption of the building. So they will have the solar panels with the kind of an electrical storage batteries within the building, so they can store some electricity during the low peak and use it during the high peak. So overall, the building will be consuming zero from the network. So this is like a new, it's a need still, and a very few cities we see that. But the technology, with the lesson learned from many kind of projects implemented into these new buildings, is making this possible and happen. And for sure, it is not regularly you can see that, because it will require kind of a special design and a special solutions. And the building owner needs to have a high awareness of the importance of energy consumption. But we work hand in hand with a lot of these developers, and we participate during the design stage to make sure that this design is possible to be implemented and will achieve what is the target they want to do.
And Sarah, this comes back to the point we were making at the beginning about when I said things were possibly conflicting forces, and you were saying they're not. I guess this supports what you were saying at the very beginning.
Well, yes, just I'll just like to highlight another issue. It's related and sort of because I cannot stress enough the importance of the government sector to lead in this. But the private sector is doing it really important. However, I would say that nevertheless, we should not just oversee the effect or the footprint that can come from the replication of low-cost housing buildings done by government in different countries, because nevertheless, I do understand that maybe the amount of saving in any resource, including water or energy, and also the reduction in greenhouse gases might be very minimal compared to one private building that has so much advanced techniques and technologies. But the replicability of these buildings, because if you're doing it and replicating the same prototype across the country. So I think this is what the countries should focus on if they want to meet their SDG targets and include within their NDCs. So I think in a way we can meet in somewhere in the middle, you know what I mean? So work in both sides.
And do you feel that governments are moving in the right direction, or do you think that there needs to be more efforts at the moment?
Yes, and we need to have more pilot projects. For example, one very good pilot project that I can mention is a project with the UNEP and the Ministry of Housing in Egypt. It's part of the Mediterranean Investment Facility in Egypt. So what they're doing is that they're working on a voluntary ordinance for reducing the energy needs in buildings. And they have worked the prototype in governmental housing buildings. So once this is complete and proven successful, the Ministry of Housing intends to replicate the prototype across all the buildings in the country. And I think this way the footprint will be really high. followed, this should be followed by the monitoring system, because of course we cannot just set this without monitoring and checking the effectiveness of whatever technologies that have been implemented. So the project is including a compliance tool that will be used by the governmental authorities to check if the building meets within the compliance of whatever green building laws in the country. And I think this would have a very good impact for even the private sector to follow on with more advanced techniques, because definitely, and understanding that these are just low-cost buildings, most of the technique were passive techniques. But I do understand that in private sector buildings, we can include other active techniques, including high-tech technologies, BMS, and cooling and heating, other techniques that Mohammed has been talking about.
Yeah, and certainly in Egypt, the population numbers mean that that's a significant number of people when you start talking about public housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Colin, just I would like to add here with the connection with Sarah, she mentioned about rising cost of the technology and the intention for the government to reduce the energy. So some of the solution came to cover this kind of requirement is we have a software called Forge within Honeywell, and this software is mainly sitting in the cloud, in the servers of a data center. So you will be avoiding a lot of capex investment in the low-cost buildings. So like a BMS system, which Sarah, she mentioned, the building management system, is not required always to be sits inside the buildings. But you need only the sensor devices and some actuators to do the actions. But all the intelligence and the software will be sitting in the servers on the data center. And the owner doesn't need to pay it in advance. They can pay it in some portions, monthly or yearly, etc. And that can be regularized through the government entities. So we see this is a solution which is now there's a lot of need and demands happening, especially for the low-cost building going on.
So that would work just with sensors in the individual housing units and then having a centralized data center within the community. And have you
so you don't need to install this software in your buildings and put the cost of the storage and servers, workstations, etc. So you'll avoid all of that by doing this.
And have you rolled that out in the region on any developments already?
There is a serious discussion. It is a new kind of solutions. There's a lot of interest in different countries we're working with now.
Mm-hmm.
It for sure needs a lot of regulations, a lot of coordination with the facility providers like the electricity and water authorities. So all of that has been into the discussion.
Okay. And Stefan, you're in Abu Dhabi. There's a lot of housing being developed there. Is the housing, public housing, or Emirati housing, something you've looked at in Abu Dhabi at all?
As ADES, we're not really focusing on residential. There are studies being done, especially by the Department of Energy on the housing and residential. At the moment, ADES, we focus on large, I would say, government buildings. Our first projects, to give you an idea, we're working with the schools. So we've signed an agreement with the UAE Ministry of Education to retrofit 256 schools in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. We've launched a first project on 10 large schools in September. So we still have a few to do. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago, we signed with SAHA, so the medical centers and hospitals. So we're going to help SAHA to reduce the consumption in their hospitals and clinics. So those are the kind of projects on which we focus right now. I think for us, it's easier to go at bigger buildings and I would say large portfolios, like 256 schools. I think SAHA has around 60 hospitals and clinics. So in order to get numbers quickly, savings quickly, that's how we're going to focus. Residential is a different story. I think residential, you're talking about a lot of individual owners, smaller buildings. Also, the savings you can do per house is much smaller compared to bigger buildings. So you need to have specific programs for that. In the past, when I was working in Dubai, we did a residential program where we replaced, for example, lighting in a large number of government-owned houses. So that's something easier to do. You just replace incandescent light by LEDs, and you can very quickly go and I would say have a big effect by the number of schools. But again, number of houses. But again, houses are much smaller compared to larger buildings. So it's a difficult. You need to address them differently than other buildings, I would say.
And Mohammed, we've got another question here in which I think is coming from the point you made about sensors and remote monitoring, about how do you ensure data security considering the trend to proceed towards the cloud?
Right. Yeah, this is a good question actually, and this is becoming a must with the solution when we sell it. So with the cyber security and firewalls, which is by default included in the software deployment, this will guarantee the data privacy and guarantee that the channel of the data will not be utilized anywhere else. So be it in the cloud, be it in the premise, now doesn't make any difference with these kind of cyber security solutions and firewalls.
Okay. And looking forward, Sarah, you mentioned that governments, it's very important for governments to take the lead. What do you think the state of the market will look like if we're having this discussion again in maybe 3 years' time? What do you expect will have changed?
I think this would depend on whatever the cost would be for the technologies, like the best available technologies, the bad, because currently, if I'm speaking just based on my what I have seen in a couple of projects going on, that the market actually governs and dedicates exactly how the project moves, because sometimes you wouldn't see that there is any available technologies in a certain country while it's available in another country. The cost of the technology itself will have a very big effect on how the market moves forward. So if we have reliable technologies that are accessible and affordable, I think a big move and a big shift in the sector. So I think the market will be leading, the technology and research will be leading how things can shift. Also, this is combined with the political determination and commitment towards this issue. And I do believe that we will be seeing more of sustainability, because as we know that most of the countries have their deadline for their SDGs toward 2030. So some of the countries are now just figuring out that they need to have a lot of homework to be doing. So I think there will be acceleration into this sector.
Mohammed, that sounded a little bit of a challenge laid down for technology companies. How confident are you at meeting that?
Yeah, definitely. See, then, Colin, it is a business evaluation, and that's how we see the demand and the quantity of the opportunities and the projects will also reduce the cost overall, because we're talking about technology which is like 4 or 5 years old, which is on the energy saving specific. So when the market is more mature, there will be a lot of development which will bring also overall the serving cost is less. But I would like to say additional thing here, which is it is a behavior shift for all of us, because it starts with our home, with our kids. When they go out from the room, switch off the lights, switch off the AC, etc. So the technology is also saving, and this purpose will say that the thermostat, it comes with an indication if there is something wrong, that you are in daytime and there is a light, natural light coming from the window, but then the light is on. That will give you an indication. If the AC is on and the window is open, that also will give you an indication that you are wasting energy. So we started this education in the schools a long time ago. I remember in some specific schools in Abu Dhabi, where we mention on the screens how to reduce the water tap, how to switch off the light, etc. And this is ongoing. So as much as we are following that, it will be a kind of a behavior for everyone, and the energy overall pollution reduction will be there.
Has there been any feedback on how successful that sort of education process has been?
Yeah, so there's a kind of surveys which you see nowadays, especially like in Dubai. DEWA, the Dubai Authority, Electricity and Water Authority, launched the application where it shows you that your consumption in your apartment or villa is higher than the average, or it is within, or it is less. So that is an indication which is giving a feedback direct to the residents, to the owners, that it is going well or there's something to pay attention. So when you receive this message, this is by itself motivates you to say, okay, what's going wrong? And then you can save it for the next month. So you can benefit from the reduction on the electricity bill at the end.
And then, Stefan, how do you see the market evolving for you over the next 3 years? I'm guessing your end users and customers are aware of it because they've signed up to contracts to save energy. So I guess they've already had a little bit of education already.
Yeah, I think for us there's a lot to do because I think for historic reason and also probably because of the tariffs, the market in Dubai has been leading because the cost of electricity and water is higher, so the savings come faster, I would say. Abu Dhabi costs of electricity and water is lower, but the awareness is coming. You know, the people understand, they start to realize, they see that, yeah, they have to do something. And the government here in Abu Dhabi is now putting in place a very strong strategy around pushing everybody to save electricity and water. So as ADES will be quite busy. We're already a bit busy, but we'll be quite busy in the coming years. We're about to announce a few other big projects, so that will be quite interesting to see. I'm quite hopeful that the private sector in Abu Dhabi is going to follow as well, because at the moment it's very much government driven. But I've seen some indications that yes, things are moving, which is very good. I'm still hoping also, you know, we just mentioned it before, but the subsidies on the electricity and water, which plays against our business, because obviously if the more it is subsidized, the less good it is for us. But I think the people start to realize also that subsidies cannot be there forever. So the market may evolve in that direction. So we'll see in the coming years.
And Amma, do you have any last points to add over what your expectations are for the next 2 to 3 years? We can try your sound. Okay, that seems to be Amma? Stefan, can you hear Amma coming through, or is it just an issue on my side? No. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other coming through to the end of the session? Are there any other final points that either of you would like to make?
If you allow me,
Yes.
Colin, I have just a final. I would like to put further pressure into the R&D in companies. So I just wanted to mention that a recent study we have conducted in RECRE with the EU have shown that within the region, 40%, 40+% from the total energy consumption comes from the residential sector. And biggest share of this comes from the air conditioning. So I would appreciate very much if R&D and bigger companies would focus into the VAC systems, because we know exactly how heavily it's used within the region. And I think more research at least should be done on solar AC system it can be, or at least hybrid systems. This can help us go a very big step forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Mohammed, I think you said
yeah, I would say this is an energy saving is a big topic, and we see this is rising up more and more. And the way we see it, it will be more successful in joining hands between the technology companies and the designers and the end users and the operator at the end. As much as there is a collaboration and there is a lot of focus on raising awareness and working together with the Super ESCO to have an implementation arm, and the regulatory will support that, we will see a lot of benefit going out from this. And this is saving at the end energy for the future generation.
Okay, and if it means my air conditioning bill hopefully comes down in the future, I'll be very happy.
We'll help you to do that.
Sarah, Mohammed, Stefan, and Ahmed, thank you very much, and it was very insightful. Thank you.